Have you achieved success and a high income, but still lack personal fulfillment and work-life balance? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. Join us as Erin, Eunicia, Joanne, and Mim share transformative insights and practical strategies just for you. Discover real stories and lessons that will elevate your personal satisfaction, professional accomplishment, and financial empowerment.
Do you think it's possible to get more done with less time and energy? This is what we will be talking with our super co-host, Dr. Erin Hurley, who is actually an expert in this matter. I cannot wait to hear all the insights. And in our last episode, we were talking about finishing strong and how is this particularly important for women in medicine and all the expectations and all the things. And we talked about getting inspired to celebrate your wins, to get back and really rethink of what you want to do in the rest of the year or any time of the year for that matter. But then we hear, wait a minute, get more done. How is that even possible? So I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this, especially for us women in medicine. We are already so overcommitted, we overfunction. And Erin, I've heard you talk so many times, and I know you have so many success stories with the people you coach on this matter. So tell us, why is this important?
Well, the desire to help us get more done with less time and energy came from my own medical career, because I was constantly burning the candle at both ends, really sacrificing my sleep, sacrificing my energy to get all the things done that I felt I needed to, or all the things I had committed to. And then I started really diving into the research when I created a program for physicians and healthcare providers to be able to get their charting done in real time instead of, we call it pajama charting. And maybe you can relate to being up at night, everybody else is sleeping or doing something fun, and there you are typing away in your electronic health record, getting your charts done. I started really digging deep into the research and asking, what are we doing now? And what can we be doing differently in order to get different outcomes? And I was flabbergasted at what the research said we could do versus what we were doing in medicine to get results about getting more done with less time and energy. And if you think it's hopeless, if you think there's no way, I've been doing it for 20 years, I would like to reignite that fuel, that flame of hope for you, because I have worked with people even 30 years into their medical career and helped them get different outcomes. So that's where we talked in the last episode, Joanne, about the importance of mindset. If your mindset is, I can't do anymore, I don't have capacity to try one more thing, I've tried everything, then your mindset is likely precisely what's keeping you trapped in your current circumstances. And so that's where I like to go is raising that awareness. What am I telling myself? That what's possible or what's impossible? And how is that what's keeping me trapped in my current circumstances? Does that make sense?
Yes. And that's such an important thing. We talk so much about mindset and how we usually externalize our experience to the circumstances, and how we need to take responsibility and of our mindset, like you're saying. And I would love to hear more specific tools or examples of how can we think differently to really get this done, because I'm sure that you might be thinking, no, they're saying that that's possible for other people, but not for me. They don't know what's on my plate and all the things I have to do. And we can challenge those thoughts. And I want you to help us understand, how is it that we can think differently and fight all those old limiting beliefs about what we can do?
I have a great example that just came up this week, and I've been sharing so much about this amazing success story. It's actually my old college roommate who is a physician, and we went out to dinner less than 6 weeks ago, and she shared how charting was basically had taken over her life, her evenings, her days off, her weekends. And every time the family had something to do, she always had to say, I can't do that, because she had to get her work done. And within such a short time of us working together, she's got completely different results. Number one, because when I said, hey, I can help you with this, I'm an expert in helping people decrease how much time they're spending charting. I've had amazing results. She didn't say, oh, that'll never work. Oh, I've done it this way for over 25 years. I've tried things. Yeah, she didn't say that. She said, okay. I said, let's get on a call. And we did. And I keep getting these amazing texts about her success, how early she's done in the day, how, oh my gosh, I now have my day off and my weekends free. They're no longer burdened with charting. And yet she started sharing some of her success with some of her colleagues, other women in medicine. And she was flabbergasted, like I've been sometimes. And they're like, oh, well, it won't work for me because I'm in primary care and you're a specialist. Oh, well, maybe it worked for you, but your circumstances are different than mine. And what I could say is, there have been people successful in all different specialties and in primary care, and people who work from home and virtually, and who go into the hospital and into the clinic. And yet that mindset of, oh, you're different than I am, it's not going to work, is precisely the thing that's going to keep them, because that person may not even be willing to try something because their closed mindset, their fixed mindset, is keeping them stuck. And my hope by us bringing up these different topics on the podcast, my hope is we know the power of coaching. We know the power of shifting our mindset. My hope is during these episodes, maybe we're shifting your mindset a little bit. Do you have, as a listener, do you have a fixed mindset in certain areas of your life? And can you get curious and say, I wonder what would happen if I try something different? I wonder if it's possible. What if I had some hope that things could change? I wonder what might be possible.
And for the listener, if just to clarify, you've probably heard those concepts of growth mindset and fixed mindset. And for so long, we believe that after a certain age that we couldn't really change anything in terms of our character or personality, the way that we think. And we know that that's not true. And it comes with the intent, and it's the exploration of what are some of those thoughts that you've had so often that they became beliefs. And then once they become a belief, then you, to be redundant, believe that you cannot do something. And that's what Erin is saying of, if you have those thoughts of, oh, I've tried everything, or you don't understand, or, well, that doesn't work in my specialty, you might not necessarily have like a fixed mindset overall, but question where are you having thoughts that limit you, or they don't serve you? And I love what you're saying. I love that word wonder. It's one of my favorite words because it taps into our curiosity of staying curious of, is there a different way that I can think about this? And sometimes just asking that question is enough to have that pattern interrupt and get out of the whirlwind. And you don't even have to find the answer and then saying like, I wonder if this can work for me. And actually, I am curious, Erin, of what were some of those thoughts that you could see in your roommate? What were some of the transformation in terms of her thoughts that allowed her to change, really? Because we start with our thoughts. Any that you can remember?
Well, one of the ideas I want to share is, this is not meant to be a criticism. For me, I was 20 years into my career before my coach challenged my fixed mindset, and I could start getting curious about looking at things from a different perspective. This morning, I just had a conversation with a private client, and we we recognize that there are times that your fixed mindset are helpful, that being tenacious, that figuring it out on your own have served you well. And yet, there are times where that same mindset, that same belief system is not serving you. And my challenge to my client was, can we be more discerning and ask ourselves, maybe you're taking a mindset that's helpful for you when you're the leader at work, and then you bring that same mindset when you come home to your family, and it may not serve you there. And my challenge to her was, can you be more intentional, put the correct hat on in the correct environment, and ask, is this serving me right now? Is me having to be perfect in this? Is, for example, perfectionism. Many people that I coach, especially in charting, they want their notes to be perfect. You and I have talked about that. You want to put the semicolon where it belongs. And yet, what's the cost for doing that? And when my clients have been allowing themselves to let go of the perfectionism where it's not serving them, they have found it has cracked open this huge wedge of time that then they can use that time for other things like spending time with their families. So we've talked about perfectionism in past episodes versus precision. Can you have a precise note that's not perfect? And if so, is having that preciseness good enough? Done is better than perfect. But again, that's shifting our mindset from everything I need to do is perfect, from let's allow that really high quality standard to remain, but can we shift what all is needed to attain that? And I think that you had asked, well, I went on a bit of a tangent, but you asked also my roommate, what was her mindset? The benefit for me was when we met, she's already done a lot of personal growth things. She's worked with coaches in different areas. She's done, she does meditation and does different things. So the pump was already primed. She was already open to new ways of trying things and had not given up hope. So that was one of the things that benefited her versus somebody who's never tried different avenues, or who's not aware of how coaching can help, who's not aware of being willing to be curious and keep trying if you haven't found the results that you're looking for.
And I don't want to miss the opportunity to pinpoint two very important distinctions that you just gave us. One, we sometimes get binary, very black and white about this growth and fixed mindset. And you're right, we cannot hear it like that. And I love the distinction of a way of thinking, so that we don't necessarily call it fixed mindset and get stuck there. A way of thinking that serves you in one setting might not serve you in another. And that is a really important awareness to have, because it's not always about changing the way we think. It's knowing where it is appropriate. And that's, as physicians, a lot of times we have to be super precise. We have to be very assertive. We have to be in command. We have to push our emotions aside. What we don't always do well is turn that down a bit when we're checking in with ourselves and when we're going with our family or families or doing other things. So that was a really good distinction. And then the other distinction that I heard you say is, and it's actually a good example of a growth mindset, is the willingness to be open to how coaching can help you. Like, it sounds like your friend was I love that word, primed. Her brain primed to be open. And the truth is that we can get there at any time just by being curious to think of, is there a different way? Can someone help me? Can I get other ideas? Can I have a different role model? And just that curiosity can be enough to what we're calling getting primed, to being open to working with someone and, the way you helped her. And it sounds like with great success. So I love that. I love those success stories. They make my heart sing because, again, a lot of times we get stuck thinking, the system is so tough. It's going to be horrible no matter what. And, we need to challenge that thought without minimizing that there are a lot of things that are hard and difficult externally. And we can still take accountability for what we can do to do better. And sometimes it is working with someone else who can give us guidance and challenge us into the right direction. And I want to take the opportunity, Erin, to ask you, because I know that this is something that you help people regularly. What are some other tools that can help us accomplish more in less time?
When I look at the research, one of the surprising aspects is that taking a break can actually help us get more done. For example, one of my clients, I encouraged her, step away from the computer, get off your phone, get outside, go for a walk, move your body. And what she found was that when she pulled herself away from her computer, even though she had work to do, and she took a 10-minute break, took a walk around, got outside in nature, moved her body, got off the screen, invited her colleagues to join us. So now she was sometimes getting socialization as well. That max packed 10-minute break, the ripple effect in a positive manner, it didn't make her run 10 or 20 more minutes behind on her afternoon patients. And this is a very busy primary care physician who's a leader and who has very complex patient population. And yet, when she took that break, her afternoon went better. Her energy was different. She was more grounded and more focused and more connected with her team. And think about the ripple effect for each of those who joined her on that walk. Now she was role modeling, and her role modeling as a leader was creating this profound ripple effect on not just her patients, but her colleagues and her colleagues' patients with a simple break, well thought out break of 10 minutes. And there's a very powerful research article I quote it all the time. It's listed in the book, The One Thing, I believe is what it's called. And it's this graph, and it shows the highest level of decision making at 3 distinct times during these parole judges' day. And then the curve sharply declines. And the only time that the implication of the highest level on the chart, the only times that happened was first thing in the morning, so they were fresh, after their late morning coffee break, and after their lunch break. And what would happen is they took a break and their decision-making capacity popped right back to their maximum again. So really functioning on what I call your A game. And then it quickly declined with time. So imagine having no breaks, and the only time you're performing at your peak is first thing in the morning. And as a physician, maybe you were on call. Maybe you're a parent and your kids kept you up. So you might not even be at your A game. And now you've declined. And I'm raising my hand up, and now you've gone down, 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 down. And now you're performing at a very low decision-making capacity for the rest of your day if you don't take a break. So I ask you, do you want to spend your day more on your A game? Maybe you need to take more intentional short breaks versus I'm coming in depleted and it's just going downhill from there. So the power of breaks is something that was surprising for me, that sometimes taking more breaks intentionally, well placed, will help you get more done.
And if you're thinking, I'm a surgeon, I do surgeries that last a couple of hours, that doesn't apply to me, I would challenge you, even, and I know I'm a psychiatrist, so I don't even pretend to understand what doing surgery means, except for my vague memory from the last century when I was in medical school. But because I have worked with surgeons and I have been able to coach a good number of them, we were able to identify little pockets of time that literally just changing your gaze for a few breaths and then coming back could be a reset. And not to minimize that we need a longer break, but there are things that we can do throughout the day. So don't let your brain tell you, I cannot do that. Find those little pockets of time, because the research is so profound. I love that example. And then how beautiful your example, that then it was a very obvious ripple effect that can be so powerful. What other things do you have as specific tools?
So that was taking an intentional break at the time that serves you and being able to do something that is helpful. The other is removing unintentional breaks, which might be seen as distractions or interruptions. And the reason I bring that up is every time you're in a thought process, say completing a chart note, looking up research about something your patient has, you're in a more complex task, not just washing your hands, and someone interrupts you, they basically just tagged on up to 25 minutes to your day. Because you were working in flow, you were doing this thing, and it takes about 25 minutes for your brain to get back to that workflow that you were in before your interruption. So think about your medical assistant, your front desk staff, the nurse, a colleague, your phone, your pager, your notifications on your screen. Every one of those interruptions is costing you potentially up to 25 minutes a day. And one client that I was coaching on helping with their charts, she worked at a one-woman show. She was the only clinician in her office. All the staff worked around her. She trained her staff, so they waited for her to come to them. She went to 0 interruptions in a very fast time frame, and went from getting, when we first started working together, she was maybe getting 1 or 2 charts done during her day. She worked in primary care out of, say, 14 patients a day, to by the end of her day getting all but 1 or 2 charts done. So a complete flip in the ratio of complete charts versus not complete charts. And one of the powerful needle moving steps she took was asking her staff, if it's not an emergency, not to interrupt. And, maybe she scheduled times at 11 and 4, I'll come find you. Or at the end of my morning and at the end of my afternoon, I'll come find you. We'll catch up on everything. And if there's an emergency, come get me. But most things weren't an emergency. So if you could erase those interruptions that aren't an emergency, that aren't necessary, and you might need to say to your staff, this is when I'm going to connect with you. Otherwise, they're going to nab you anytime you come out of a room or anytime they see the whites of your eyes, versus allowing you to come to them or having scheduled time. So removing some chaos from your day, removing notifications if you can, and recognizing that I want to raise your awareness every time you get that interruption, or that you distract yourself. Oh, I'm just going to check social media. Oh, I'm just going to look at the news. Oh, I'm just going to. And the power of those interruptions, distractions, is not only adding hours to your day for most of us, but also every time you switch, I call it toggling. Every time you switch from one part of your brain to another task, back and forth task switching, you are losing emotional and mental bandwidth. So it's another charge on your account that is oftentimes unnecessary.
That reminds me, one of my friends, Trina, she's a hospitalist, and she would be in the area where they would write their notes, doing her work and chart reviewing and all of that. And she talked to her nurses saying some of these things of, please do not interrupt me, and trying to be more efficient. And she could not ignore the team's messages coming up, and she would see like 1 notification, 2, 3, 4, 5. So she stacked a bunch of sticky notes to that part of the computer so that she wouldn't see them, and she turned the volume down. And then that way, and she said, if there's an absolute emergency, just literally come and knock my door if you can, or call me on my cell phone. But then that was like a little tool that she used, similar to what you're saying. And that's the point I think that we want to bring here, is that sometimes we do need to get creative instead of letting our brains say, oh, that's easy for you to say, that's not possible for me. And then again, asking ourselves the question, well, is there a different way I can think about this? Going back to the mindset, and then thinking about the tools, because the tools without the mindset only work for a short period of time. When we want sustainable long-term benefits, we need to raise our awareness and start shifting our mindset. That's what I hear you say, Erin.
Absolutely. And as you talk about your colleague and what she needed to do, the other aspect of this is when we share this information, just like the one client I told you about who shared the walk with others, when you share about what interruptions do, imagine if you decrease your interruptions by 10% and you share that information with your friends and colleagues, and they then decrease their interruptions by 10%. Now we create an environment where it's kind of triage. Of course, interrupt me if there's an emergency. And it's a win-win because you're going to then have more bandwidth. And when you take just one or two of these little strategies, and I've got so many more, what I look at it is it creates a wedge. Like if you think of your time, it's so tightly packed. Now you just created an opening. Maybe you just erased one interruption and that added 25 minutes to your day. Maybe you added one strategically placed break and you got your afternoon's work done 5% more efficiently. You just bought yourself more time. And that's where when we shift how we do the work, how we communicate with our team, how we maneuver through our world, then if we can crack open our tightly packed time and energy bank, now we're going to have a little bit of extra time and energy to work with. So now we can look at other strategies that might take, like going for a jog or doing something that's more time and energy. I'm not asking you to do any of those. I'm asking you to do some strategic moves that are going to subtract time and energy from being a negative impact on your day and cracking open a little bit of a wedge. So now maybe your mindset can be a little less overwhelmed and say, oh, now I have a little bit more capacity to look at some of the other strategies that might serve me.
This is so important. I'm so glad that we're talking about this topic because you're right. As women physicians, I like what you mentioned earlier, that we tend to burn the candle on both ends. And that's not sustainable. That's not good for our health. We burn out, our family suffers. And these are conversations that we need to have, and to have the belief that we can do more with less time and energy. It's all about the intention and our priorities. That's what I heard you say. And then knowing that it is also about our mindset, those thoughts that we have on purpose that are aligned with what we want, and then having the specific tools instead of thinking, oh, that's not going to work for me, then thinking of what you said, the intentional breaks, eliminating the unintentional breaks and the distractions. And I'm so visual. I love hearing you say create these wedges of times. I literally just saw it's like coming in of the light to do what we want to do, and those things that will in turn increase our energy and help us with that sense of harmony and presence that we talk so much about. Again, especially if we tie it back to this time of the year when we want to finish strong so that we can start this next year full of energy and very hopeful about the future. Erin, give us a few words of wisdom.
Just to stack onto what I've already talked about, what I didn't talk about is that for women physicians, and this is not to say that men physicians have things easy, but when I look at the research, the numbers are stacked against us. We spend more time in the patient room. We spend 1.5 times more than our male colleagues in the electronic health record. We tend to take on more of the child care duties and the household duties than our male partners. So there's so many, we have higher divorce rates. There's just so many odds stacked against us. The one thing that research often shows is that we tend to have better outcomes for our patients. My question is, at what cost for us? And when you can find some strategies that work for you, it doesn't have to take a long time. I've had two sessions with my old roommate and less than 3 hours together. And she now has freed up her day off and her weekends so quickly because she was open to the information. She implemented it, not perfectly, but in her way. She still has more improvements she could make. She cracked open a huge wedge of time with very minimal time investment. And so looking for what are the ways where you can fast track your improvements with the least amount of time and energy. It's possible.
So cool. And we have a favor to ask you. If you've been liking this podcast, if you find it helpful, if you think of someone that you think would benefit from this podcast, there is a way for us to get in front of more people. So if you haven't, we would greatly appreciate it if you leave us a rating and a review. And if you're like me and you had a hard time finding where to do this, go to the show. Literally, it's like go to show up in where the three dots are, and then scroll down after the first episodes, and you'll see the little 5 stars. And if you're so kind to leave us a message as well, we read all of them. And this is how we get better. This is how we'll get in front of more people and get to what you really need. And with that, stay tuned for our next episode.
Don't miss out on more strategies that will elevate you to new heights. Visit successfulbutstruggling.com now, where you'll discover exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with each of us individually. There you can dive deeper into how you, too, can take your personal and professional game to the next level. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Number 1, connect with us on the website. And number 2, tune in to the next episode.